The Majority Report with Sam Cedar. The destiny of America is... America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite. Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Monday, March 23rd, 2020. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the, well, many steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, job losses mount as Democrats fight for relief bill. Vote is taking place right now. Connell wants a corporate giveaway. We'll see where we land. Meanwhile, Alex Sammon, staff writer at the American Progress, will join us to talk about nationaling the airlines. Might apply to some other industries too, frankly. Meanwhile, medical supply shortages hit across the country as Trump refuses to enlist the Defense Production Act. Nation's governors are outraged by the failures of the federal government. However, the White House is getting into gear, folks. They are mobilizing agencies across the government to blame China. U.S. intel reports in January and February are blinking red. Were blinking red. Trump ignored. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice wants to be able to suspend the Constitution in court and criminal proceedings. Rand Paul has it, as do 350,000 others now diagnosed as having coronavirus in this country. Joe Biden did a video, and 38 positive tests in Rikers and other jails in New York. These folks need to be released. All this and more on today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We've got some of our tech stuff, I think, at least worked out for today. We have a different system that we're using. Brendan and Matt are with us, and hopefully within a couple of days we'll have bring in Jamie, and Michael will join us, and it's all fun. And I'm a monitor too, or too shy of where I need to be, but we're getting there, and we figured it out. I think. Hopefully, people are hearing this. And we should also say, many of you like to listen to it audio only live and through the app at majorityapp.com. We are in the process of working that out as well. Kyle is going to set something up for us. I think that it's going to be awesome for us. So that's good happening. You can always listen or watch on the app at majorityapp.com. It's free app. And if we're not streaming live audio, you can just click on the YouTube, and it will take you right to the to the thing. Brenda, you telling me I need to more audio? No? Okay. Just a reminder, this program, like a lot of the programs you see, rely on its members for support. We got a couple of ads, and we'll get to them. And I don't know how much longer a lot of these ads are going to be with us. And obviously, there's a lot of members who are going through some financial stress right now. I mean, the vast majority of the country. We're getting close to rent time, various bills, and hopefully something will come out of the vote today, and we will see where we are. We'll talk more about that as the show progresses. But if you are one of those people who your job is not in jeopardy, and you have the ability to support the show, be much appreciated. Join the majorityReport.com. Also, send some videos around to people. Those views, we're still getting some advertising from YouTube. I suspect that's going to go down, but I don't think it's going to go away totally. And check out the AM Quickie. Listen to that every morning. And we'll talk about the other shows too. Don't forget, Matt's got a show, Literary Hangover and the Intifada, TMBS. Check out the Noma Key show. All these shows need your support at this time. Everybody's going through the same thing. But with that said, too, I've got some plugs and notices today. Oh, who's got music? Do you got music? I forgot to put in some music. Hold on for 1 second. Let's see if I can do that. That was the one thing we didn't think of.
I can play the music too.
Oh, can you? All right. Well, this is it okay music?
The one that we played last time, right?
Yeah, let's play some of that music for this episode of March 23rd. All right. Well, people imagine music behind this. For this version of Plugs and Notices, Monday, March 23rd, it's coming from a buddy of Brendan's. For more than 30 years, the Doe Fund has helped break the devastating cycles of unemployment, homelessness, and incarceration. They are launching a new pilot program, Good Food Works, producing fresh grab-and-go salads for sale at affordable prices throughout New York City, providing jobs to men transitioning back into the workforce. You can help their crowdfunding campaign at ioby.org/project/good-food-works. We will put the link below this video or in the podcast description, as we will for all the links. Maggie writes, this is a plug for my tutoring business, the Buff Tutor Network. Most of our tutors are grad students, adjuncts, teachers, and full-time tutors in STEM fields. This is a good time to get tutors if you can afford to. Obviously, kids having a tough, school from remote. We're starting that around here. It's a madhouse. Buff, BUFF, tutor, TUTOR.com. And Maggie also wants to say happy birthday to her mom with an improvised shofar. We don't have the shofar set up yet, so I'll just, there you go. There's also Isabel writes in to say you mentioned some emergency funds on Friday, dancers, musicians, and actors. If you could mention 2 more: Authors League Fund, Dramatists Guild Foundation. Authors League Fund, Dramatists Guild Foundation. And Hunter writes in, I'm a member of a small DSA chapter in Chico, California, working on a program to help support at-risk communities in Butte County, California. We have a GoFundMe. That is at gofundme.com/F/Butte County Pandemic Mutual Aid. We will put a link, obviously, to that. And there's some, you can read about it in the Chicoer.com, Volunteers Organizations Preventing Isolated People from Going Hungry, members of the DSA. We will put into the description 3 coronavirus resources links. One is to the coronavirus resource kit. It's a collectivized document that will be updated as more mutual aid projects and resources appear online. The COVID-19 mutual aid and advocacy resources. It's an edible document tree. It's a resource for people looking out for themselves and their communities through personal preparation, collective care, mutual aid advocacy, and the database of localized resources during coronavirus break. We will put links to all of that in the descriptions. And lastly, Brian, who is out of the city, writes about his best friends, Matt and Leslie. They're in Brooklyn. They have 2 restaurants that are struggling called Stocked Brooklyn, the Stocked Cafe. You can check it out at stockedbrooklyn.com, 635 Vanderbilt and 635 Washington. They are delivering, I believe, or they're doing takeout. So check that out, stockedbrooklyn.com. And that is our plugs and notices for today. I tend to be now a day behind on the plugs and notices because we're getting in so many, but you can email us at majorityreporters@gmail.com, put in the subject line plugs and notices, and we will get to them. And eventually we'll get a separate email address for that. We're gearing up, folks. I guess also if we need new hires, their easy way to do it, ZipRecruiter. You can try ZipRecruiter for free today at ziprecruiter.com/majority. I'm looking right now as I look at my little window there. I'm looking at one of ZipRecruiter's top hires. I should say, well, he wasn't hired by ZipRecruiter. It was our ZipRecruiter's top hires. Of course, it's Brendan. So I know this. I have personal experience with ZipRecruiter. It sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job sites, and they don't stop there. They have a powerful matching technology. ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right skills and experience for your job. And then they actively invite them to apply. You can even add screening questions to your job listing so you can filter candidates and focus on the best ones. Brendan, how did they invite you to apply?
Well, they sent me email blasts at an almost cruel rate. No, at a cool rate, I should say. And yeah, I came across this one, and it asked, you had the most in-depth application questions, I would say. Kind of fun ones, too.
Well, thank you. Still, look at that.
Yeah.
Look like someone's now bucking for a raise. Look, ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free. My listeners can go to ziprecruiter.com/majority. That's ziprecruiter.com/majority, MAJORITY. ZipRecruiter.com/majority. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Folks, a lot of folks at home right now. You're looking around your house. and you're thinking, man, we may need another couch. Well, Joyboard can bring your mood boards to life with hundreds of customizable pieces and over 50 fabric and leather options, 3 shades of wood, over 250 unique silhouettes from Joybird. Fabric swatch kits allow you to see and touch all their fabrics and find the perfect choice. They even offer a range of kid and pet friendly upholstery options. I have a feeling by the end of this, we're going to need a lot of new couches with kids and pets. The kids are destroying this house. Joybird's protection plan helps keep the pieces looking brand new. Feel overwhelmed? A free personal design consultant can help you go from inspiration to creation. They also have financing options, and your rates could be as low as 0% APR for 18 months. They have a 365-day home trial, so you can bring the showroom home. You can even get free returns within 2 weeks of delivery. Create furniture that matches your own fearless style at joybird.com/majority25. See how Joybird can help make your dream space a reality today at joybird.com/majority25. Go to joybird.com/majority25. Receive an exclusive offer for 25% off your first order using the code majority25. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we're going to go quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Alex Sammon, staff writer at American Prospect, on the prospect of nationalizing the airlines. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Cedar on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome to the program Alex Sammon. He is a staff writer at the American Prospect. He wrote a piece, I guess 4 or 5 days ago now, which feels like a lifetime. In the American Prospect, it's time to nationalize the airlines. I assume it's still time to nationalize the airlines. Right, Alex?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And as long as this bailout proposal kind of seems stuck in neutral, I think the recommendation remains very topical.
What is give me a sense of like and I don't know what the latest is, but I guess the vote is still happening in terms of the bailout. But what's the latest? Are you aware what the latest is on that? I mean, before we get into to this.
The last thing that I've heard was that the bailout proposal, as conceived of by the GOP, was basically a $50 billion proposal, largely no strings attached. So with few mandates in terms of hiring, in terms of executive compensation, in terms of stock buybacks, or anything like that. So it's more or less the kind of same $50 billion kind of free for all that we heard about last week, at least last I heard.
And what are the Democrats pushing for?
Well, we're not exactly. I don't think there's exactly one particular vision that we've seen from them yet, but there have been certain members who've kind of pushed to say, well, if we're going to give them a $50 billion check, they have to. These companies are going to need to put an end to stock buybacks. They're going to have to limit executive compensation. They're going to have to pay all their employees a decent $15 minimum wage, and kind of putting conditions on that bailout money that I think is a little more reasonable, at least compared to the kind of GOP vision. But again, I'm not sure what the final proposal looks like, and I think it's probably still very much under construction.
All right. Well, let's go into your piece, and we'll lay the groundwork as to why people not only think that it's appropriate for the government to put very onerous, or I should say, very specific obligations upon these airlines to receive a bailout, but that the ones that we've been talking about are just simply not sufficient. You write, and this is just sort of amazing. And it gives it gives a perfect tone for what's been going on with them. In 2017, American Airlines CEO Doug Parker said, quote, "I don't think we're ever going to lose money again." And, this is I have to say that, like, I know that I've read this peripherally and I've been aware of like how much airlines have been making, but you would think, based upon what they charge you for in terms of just like, do you want a bag of peanuts? That's $5. Do you want to bring a bag on? That's going to be $30. We're going to get rid of the ability for you to actually have legs on these flights. You would think that they were really hurting financially, but that's not the case at all, is it?
Oh yeah, absolutely not. It's been a great decade for the airlines, more or less, and they these very innovative procedures like baggage fees and rocketing up change fees and getting rid of seat back entertainment, getting rid of meals. These things have basically, they've conjured money out of thin air with these things by taking these basic services and making them incredibly expensive, and that's been extremely profitable. I mean, they've literally conjured billions of dollars a year out of thin air just on baggage fees alone. So, it's an industry that's incredibly monopolized. There are basically 4 airlines that control over 80% of domestic passenger traffic, and they figured out that they can charge you for every part of the experience, getting on the plane and bringing your legs with you, and it's been great for them. It's been a wildly profitable run for them.
I mean, I just can't get over these numbers. $5 billion in baggage fees in 2018. $5 billion in baggage fees. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty astounding. It's pretty astounding, and there's a reason people hate domestic air travel. The reason people hate the airlines, and it's for reasons like that. And it's an astonishing amount of money, and it went right back to shareholders and executive compensation.
Well, let's go. Let's go into that. But before we do, let's just go back to where we were prior to. I mean, there's really two things that are relevant here: is Carter's deregulation of the airline industry, and Ronald Reagan's deregulation, if you will, of or I guess basically getting rid of the law that basically says a company can't manipulate its own stock. Is really what we're talking about. I mean, it used to be illegal to have by 1980, but let's go back before we get into what the executives have been doing with their profits. Let's go back to the era of deregulation. Tell us what it was. What was going on with airlines prior to Jimmy Carter?
So for the first 40 years of domestic air travel, basically between 1937 and 1978, air travel was treated basically as a public utility, which it was overseen by the Civil Aeronautics Board, which was the CAB, and they managed domestic flights. They established schedules and fares and routes, and they kind of had this mandate to try to keep prices low to make domestic air travel available to people. But they also were operating under this understanding that air travel was basically a public good and needed to be managed as one. So you had this period for 40 years where air travel was no different than Amtrak or any other sort of public utility, and air travel in that era was expensive, and there were certain things that people were unhappy about. But also, this is kind of very much the airline industry in a lot of ways is kind of a bellwether for where the economy went at this point in time. So in 1978, Jimmy Carter signs this massive deregulation proposal, which basically hands over management of air travel to private companies in the name of innovation, in the name of lowering prices, increasing accessibility, and such like that. So we see kind of a sea change in the notion of how air travel is going to exist in this country, and it goes from being this public utility, to being managed by what was once hundreds of private companies, but is now, of course, just four. So we kind of see a big turning point there, and in '78, and that was kind of what set the groundwork for where we are now.
And in terms of like prices, the data showed that the prices were falling at a faster rate prior to deregulation than afterwards.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, there's kind of this conventional wisdom about privatization and deregulation in general, which is that it's the fastest way to bring down prices. It's pro-consumer, it's pro-innovation, whatever. From the very get-go, in terms of the privatization of air travel in the United States, it was pretty clear that was not the case. This was kind of not such an acute disaster as we see today, but it was clear that it was failing on these very basic levels pretty much from the outset. So air travel during the 10 years prior to the deregulation bill, as you said, the prices were decreasing faster in that decade than the immediate decade after deregulation. So from 78 to 88, prices went down, but they didn't go down nearly as quickly as the previous decade. And there are all these other economic metrics as well that showed that that based on the economic conditions of price of fuel and all these things, the prices were actually they were not going down as quickly. That we were losing massively in terms of productivity and cost to consumers and all these things. So from the very get-go, even on its own terms, the deregulation project was basically to the disinterest or to the disfavor of the American consumer, or the American flyer, or whatever you like to call it.
So we're now in a situation where for years, at least the last decade or so, the airline industry we're doing so well that their CEO said, like, we could be in an era, like, history has ended for us. We're never going to be in a period where we're not going to make money. And So what they did with all of their profits, instead of like, hey, we should have some reserves, they went out and they bought back a ton of their stock. Talk about that. And, I mean, that's been sort of a bailiwick of mine, the stock buybacks for a while. But talk about the implications of it. I mean, why would someone do this?
It's an excellent question. It's an excellent question because it's proven in this moment to be bad for everyone. But just to give a sense of how egregious this management regime was, in the past decade, the biggest U.S. airlines has spent 96% of free cash flow on buying back their own shares. It's an astounding number, 96%. And American Airlines, obviously, Doug Parker, whose quote we mentioned, as a CEO of American, was really leading the charge on this. So between 2014 and 2020, American spent $15 billion buying back its own stock, which is actually more than its free cash flow. They actually borrowed money to help facilitate this. So they racked up an outstanding debt obligation of $30 billion, which is 5 times the market value of the company, just to aid in this stock buyback. So they basically set up this regime wherein every nickel they could get their hands on was sent back to stock, basically funneled back to stockholders to artificially inflate the stock price, which was great for Doug Parker and American Airlines management, because his executive compensation then went through the roof because shareholders were so happy about all the money that he was funneling back to them. So this incredible setup here where shareholders and the executives are salting it away at the expense of not only the workers and of passengers and customers, but of the whole operation. And now we're at this place where it's basically insolvent. They're saying to us that by May, utilities are running bankrupt, and you want to know where all the money went? Well, there it is.
Right. I mean, that's basically, I mean, this is almost like, and we'll get to the loans part, but this is like a leverage buyout, right? Where they basically are just extracting from the company all this money that obviously, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. They could not afford to lose. This is just a way of the CEO basically going in and making sure that he gets paid, and then paying off all the people who could potentially say, hey, wait a second, why are you walking away with all this cash? And his response is, you are too, and let's not worry about it. And that's basically what's going on here. And they also, on top of this, they borrowed $30 billion of money, presumably to do like the stuff that they're supposed to be doing as an airline, right? Like repairing their planes or whatever it is. And which is 5 times their current market value as of a business. I mean, this is American Airlines. It's and then the idea is that we come in and backstop them for nothing, basically, right? Just like, thank you very much. Enjoy this, and we'll see you again in 10 years.
That's pretty much it. It's I mean, and they're what they'll say is that, well, this is a necessary industry, right? This is an essential industry, provides an essential public service.
Like, thank you
can't
very
exist
much.
without air travel.
Enjoy this,
well,
and we'll see you again
true.
in 10 years.
That may be true, but it seems as though we've entrusted this essential public industry to a private ownership scheme that is incapable of managing it, and as they very, very tidily showed here. So yeah, that's exactly it. It's not only the CEO or the C-suiters have done so well here. It's the shareholders have done great as well, and that's what I think is very interesting when we talk about these bailouts, is that well, the shareholders are in some way, shape, or form going to be made whole here. They'll get they're going to get some backstopping from the federal government, but I don't think there's any compelling case as to why that should be. I mean, they knowingly participated in this scheme just as much as Doug Parker or anybody else did, and they could have sold out at any time. But they were just as happy as the C-suiters to fatten their pockets on the stock buyback scheme, and And now, of course, we need it's back to the public purse to make things right.
And so let's talk about like what we could do here. I mean, and I happen to agree that it is, airline travel is an essential, like it's like a public utility. And but the thing is that with that designation comes certain responsibilities to the public. And so this isn't, it's not just a one-way street. It doesn't mean that we just keep bailing you out. Um, so talk about the idea of like, how exactly would we nationalize it? Like, what does it mean to nationalize the airline? Because on some level, right, there's the specifics are different, but the sort of the broad concept, it seems to me, could function for a couple of different industries, right? Like internet comes to mind for me. For like, here's a great example of that. You know, the a private industry in terms of what they're doing for the internet, they will invest the bare minimum they can get away with because they don't need to have extra capacity because it just costs money. Um, I think to a certain extent, we're starting to see that with hospitals on some level. But let's talk about the airline industry in terms of nationalization. Like, what does that mean in practice?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, there are a lot of different ways that we could that this sort of thing could happen. I think, kind of in the general sense, what's important to point out is like you mentioned with the internet, is that a lot of these companies, a lot of these industries came out of publicly funded research, public investment, public management. So in a lot of these cases, we're just saying, well, maybe this privatization thing was a mistake, and let's just go back to the way it was before when we could count on this. And that I think has been true across a number of industries. And so with at a very basic level, this framework is not some radical proposal. In a sense, it's just this one thing has failed. This one management team has failed. The only other one we know about that has worked would be nationalization or public management. But in terms of the specifics of how that would work, I think you could see a number of different proposals. The one that I've kind of seen most commonly was the idea that if there's going to be a bailout, the United States government should, the funds that it conveys to these companies should result in us holding 51% of shares. So if we became the majority shareholder, we would have some say in what the business is doing. That would help us obviously combat some of these more ridiculous stock buybacks, but it would also help kind of enact other pro-consumer regulation. And you get rid of the absurdity of the basic economy ticket. You could enact some real serious environmental regulations on this industry, which is has a horrible environmental track record. So that would be one way to do it. Is just the United States government could assume majority shareholder position with this bailout, and that would allow us to have some say in kind of the course of the company. That I think is actually maybe more generous even to shareholders than one would need to be, especially given the economic circumstances we find ourselves in. They could even just say where these companies are headed, they're going to they're going to be bankrupt. They're headed to zero. So we can just set the stock price at zero and say, we're going to take over the company. The stock is at zero. We're going to assume, operations and assume the outstanding debt obligations. And we're going to run this like Amtrak. We're going to run this like, kind of a basic public utility that we have to have. And that's another way to do that. And I'm sure there are even more kind of sophisticated and advanced ways of thinking about this than kind of the simple measures that I'm even throwing out here. But there are a number of ways that we can do this that are straightforward. They have precedent, and they would be not only good for the American consumer, they'd be good for the environment, they'd be good for the economy, and they may ultimately be necessary to even save these companies from the chopping block in 6 to 8 weeks.
Is there anybody in our government that is amenable to these to taking this tact? I mean, is there anybody who's actually inserting it into the conversation?
I haven't seen it yet. Like we mentioned earlier, we've kind of seen these growing calls to put some serious terms and conditions on the companies if they are to receive bailout money, and that, to be fair, is better than what we were at in 2008. Like if you compare you compare the auto bailout to what we're talking about now. We have politicians, mostly Democrats, but even Josh Hawley, who I don't know if we can take him at his word, but was saying that if they're going to take public money, they need to promise they're not going to commit to not firing a single person. They need to limit executive compensation. They need to increase wages, whatever it is. That's obviously more of a Democratic proposal, but these sort of stipulations that we're seeing are actually a vast improvement of what we saw in 2008 with the auto bailout, or 2009, which was, then the federal government mandated that these companies cut wages as they,
Right.
They offload their pension requirements. So, there has been a change a little bit in the way we're thinking about this. This is, a decade later, our line of thinking about public bailouts has shifted I think in a positive way. We'll see what the actual package looks like. Who knows? Has anyone said, let's just take this back over? Clearly, we can't trust this corporate management team with our essential industries. I haven't heard that, and I'd be happy to hear it. It hasn't found a mainstream advocate yet, at least in the government at this point. But we'll see. I'm not necessarily holding out hope, but we are kind of moving in the right direction a little bit, at least in terms of the way we think about these packages, at least over a 10-year period. So maybe eventually.
Have we heard anything from Sanders or Warren, who it seems to me would be, I don't know that Warren would be in favor of nationalization, but maybe she would, but it seems like Sanders might.
Yeah, she, both of them have Warren put forward a list of demands and conditions that any airline bailout for her vote would have to have. There were no calls to nationalization in there. There were some good good proposals in there. Some good pro-worker proposals, and Sanders kind of has done the same thing actually. The kind of bulk of his commentary on this has been, $15 minimum wage, no stock buybacks, no outsourcing, expanding benefits, and workers sitting on corporate boards. That is, that's obviously something that has been part of his presidential campaign as well. But that's another thing that at least that's something we would not have seen in 2008 or 2009, the last time we went through this whole song and dance. So. No, there's no vocal proponent of nationalization, but we are seeing kind of through Sanders and Warren that there is enthusiasm about kind of reconstituting the management structure, at least a little bit, for these airlines if they are going to walk away with a $50 billion check.
The piece, Alex, is in the American Prospect. It's time to nationalize the airlines. I happen to agree with you. And I appreciate your laying it out there. I think this is something that, this is a good time for folks to sort of, view these ideas, because this is, there's the reason why it seems to me the fight's going on with this bailout package is I think that it's not just a question of the corporations getting, their goodies. It's really the strings that they're arguing about. And I think there is a real fear amongst the Republicans that structural changes can be made at this point that, Josh Hawley, even if I was to take him at his word, a lot of what he's talking about are stuff that like, okay, crisis over, let's revert type of situation. But if you nationalize the airlines, there is no reversion. This is a new way of doing things going forward. And that's the thing that I appreciate about it. Because frankly, why keep going through this every time?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one of these things where we've learned this hard lesson again and again and again. and it does seem like maybe we can learn it for the last time here, and we can make these structural changes to prevent some of these more outlandish outcomes. But yeah, it's certainly, so we know what's wrong. We've identified the problem. We've identified the structure. We've identified the legislative circumstances that allowed it to exist. And if we're really serious about preventing ourselves from going another round on this hamster wheel, we know what to do. We have the tools to do it. So hopefully someone will take up that mantle.
Alex Sammon, staff writer, American Prospect. It's time to nationalize airlines. We'll put a link to that at majority.fm. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
All right, folks. It's an important time. I don't think that Congress has even come remotely close to sort of absorbing what is going on in terms of the country right now. I think, and I don't know, this may seem like sort of nakedly partisan, but I think the fact is that at the very least, it seems like the Democrats as a whole have at least come around to understand the severity of what we're dealing with from a health perspective. The Republicans don't even seem to be even remotely, remotely, I don't know, aware of how messed up things are right now. Maybe we can pull up that piece from the Daily Kos, but let's first listen to this. And I think they're going to come back. This bill is not going to be big enough, I don't think. You've got reports right now that we're talking about. What was it? Who was it that came out with this? The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, the president of that bank, James Bullard, predicted U.S. unemployment rate may hit 30% in the second quarter due to shutdowns. Second quarter being April, May, June. The Great Depression, and we measure it differently than we did then. And I think we measure it in a way that probably undercounts. The Great Depression, if I remember correctly, the unemployment rate was like 24.5 or 25%. This guy, James Bullard, it's a guess. He anticipates a potential of 50% drop in the GDP. The definition of a depression includes a minimum of a drop of GDP of 10%. I don't think we've ever had a 50% drop in GDP. I don't think that's ever happened. And it would need to be sustained over time, but it's very difficult to sort of get out of this hole. And the government, I think we're going to try and talk to Stephanie Kelton later in this week. But the government's going to have to step up in a big, big way. And I think they're only at the beginning of this journey in terms of realizing what the government's going to have to do. And I think that the Republicans, to a large extent, are, worried that there's going to be too many strings that comes with this bailout money. But let's turn to Brendan. Are you okay to do this? That guy, which one? Oh yeah, this Florida. Look, this is from Florida, in the Okeechobee town meeting or whatever it is, right? And this is a guy named Bryant Culpepper. I knew a couple of Culpeppers back in Worcester. In Okeechobee, Florida. He is a Okeechobee County commissioner. And I'm not showing you this because I'm worried about Okeechobee, Florida. I am now worried about Okeechobee, Florida, but we should be worried about everywhere in the country. But I think this is indicative. I mean, I've been saying this now for a couple of weeks. Guys like Sean Hannity, all of those right-wing talkers, the president of the United States, I think they all are going to have blood on their hands by sort of denying this stuff and putting out just absolute garbage. Listen carefully to this exchange in this Okeechobee town hall where this commissioner is explaining what is a legit response to the coronavirus. Here it is. Hold on once. I'm not getting audio.
No? Okay.
Oh, bear with us, folks. I don't know what happens over the course that we tested my phone system. My phone system didn't work all of a sudden. Like Skype didn't pick up the thing, so we had to do a different one. We tested this. I guess maybe we could do like multiple tests.
Nasal passages.
Okay, here we go.
This might sound kind of silly, but being in the medical field that I was as a paramedic, it started to make a lot of sense. One of the things that was pointed out in this interview with one of the doctors, foremost doctors that has studied the
pause it for 1
coronavirus.
second. All right, we jumped into this a little bit late. He is going over, how to respond to the coronavirus, and I think he's retelling about an interview he saw on One America Network. Is that the name of it? OWN. They bill themselves as the new Fox. Go ahead.
Says that the nasal passages and the nasal membranes are the coolest part of the body. That's why the virus tends to go there until it then becomes healthy enough to go into the lungs. This sounds really goofy, and it did to me too, but it works. Once the temperature reaches 136 degrees Fahrenheit, the virus falls apart and it disintegrates, okay? And I said, well, how would you get the temperature up to 132 degrees? The answer was you use a blow dryer because it's capable of doing that. So you hold a blow dryer in front of your face and you inhale with your nose, and it kills all the viruses in your nose.
Okay.
So I would just caution residents to, if there's lots of misinformation out there. We're hearing and learning a lot on social media, and there's just a lot of misinformation on how to cure this disease. And, I personally would just leave that to your medical provider. I've heard so much, just sad information about, how to cure this virus. And it's a new virus. That's why they call it a novel coronavirus. And just caution on the, mechanisms of, trying to treat this on your own, and leave that up to the medical professionals to be able to do that for you.
Social media, I would not even have brought that up. This was on OAN and One American News Network, which is the fastest growing national network on cable. And it's the new Fox News, if you want to know the truth. And it was a doctor, and it did have his credentials that he has been one of the foremost doctors in studying, how this is transmitted. And that's where that came from. And I agree with you. There's a lot of baloney out there on social media. You've got to be very careful. But I only brought it up because it came from a pretty reliable source.
I don't know how to respond to that, other than like we're watching like a rolling tragedy that has been, it's literally like just watching a slow motion video of an arsonist going and pouring gas on a fire. There's so much that is disturbing. What I really appreciate too is like how he said like it works, as if he's tested it out. Apparently, you can burn your skin at like 110 degrees. So 136. First of all, you have literally singed your face. I don't know if a blow dryer can get that hot. Maybe it can, but you would not put it up to your nose to get your flesh to 136 degrees.
Well, I've devised a contraption where I take a space heater and I put a ring around my neck and just hold it up near my nose. And I've been out in the city walking around. It's been real nice.
And where did you see this? I mean,
I built it.
It was on TV, and it was a doctor who had credentials. I mean, we're going to see, there's going to be I'm telling you, and I've been saying this, you're going to be able to overlay the graph of on a per capita basis of deaths and the ratings for right-wing news. I think, we're already seeing it in terms of governors. There's that story, I think it was on the Daily Kos about comparing Kentucky versus Tennessee, and the responses there, just in terms of the way that the two governors, you got Bashir in Kentucky, who beat Bevin, and Bill Lee in Tennessee, a Republican, and it's absolutely stunning. Like you could scroll down to the graph here. You can see the difference in just like what they yeah, can you make that bigger? Yeah, let's see this. So you can see around here, right? Okay, that's good. You can see that the rate of growth gets exponential as time goes on. That's why the first couple of weeks are the most important weeks in this thing, and that's why we are screwed in this country. Because you can see, like in blue, the boxes are where the government and Bashir acts. On March 10th, you have you have a little bit more cases in Kentucky. Well, Tennessee had 7, Kentucky had 8. There's executive orders to refill prescriptions for 30 days, closes prison visitation, restricts long-term care facilities. Meanwhile, in Tennessee, the governor states no need for schools or workplaces to close. And earlier, the governor strongly encourages social distancing, begins updates on the coronavirus. He talks about on March 11th, schools close within 72 hours. And on March 12th, you have finally Tennessee declares a state of emergency. But everybody, that's been going on for a long time. People don't do that. And it's not until the 13th that he even talks about hand washing. By the 14th, and he just says that to vulnerable populations. By the 14th, you have hospitals preparing to cease elective procedures in Kentucky. And already you're seeing the disparity. And then the growth just continues to the difference. Just by March 20th, there were 5 times as many cases in Tennessee than there were in Kentucky. And Kentucky had been, more or less at parity, slightly testing a little bit more. So this makes all the difference in the world in that regard. There we go. All right, look, we got to take a quick break and we head into the fun half. Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can go to jointhemajorityreport.com, become a member if you are, and I don't think we've set it up quite yet, but if you are having financial difficulties, if you anticipate financial difficulties, you can either cancel and send an email at majorityreporters@gmail.com and ask us to hook you up, and we will. Or you can send an email and ask us to cancel at majorityreporters@gmail.com. Leave it open and we will refund you. But if it's, we just need some time because obviously there's a lot of, it may take us a week to get there. In the meantime, we are also developing a mechanism in which you'll be able to do that by yourself. Oh, we have set that up. Okay, so folks, head over to you can go to Fans and cancel your if you're having financial difficulties. We've set up a feature now. I wasn't sure that we had rolled it out, but I guess we have. You can go to cancel at Fans, and it'll give you some options that will deal with you. If you have any issues, do that. Go cancel, and you will be able to auto opt into a situation. So if you need to cancel, do so. If you don't need to cancel, and you've been thinking about joining as a member, now would be a good time. You can do so at jointhemajority.report.com. Also, sign up, get the AM Quickie. And also, I just got 10 pounds of coffee today, showed up from justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. That's what I did. Head over there, get your coffee, load up on it. You're going to need it, folks. And don't forget, TMBS, when is tomorrow night, Matt? TMBS goes live via very much of this similar technology, emanating out of the same apartment in many respects.
The new Ground Zero.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody wants to take out all of Left Media, all they need to do is figure out where you live, Matt.
Oh
God.
Hashtag protect Lec.
Exactly. You can head over to the Michael Brooks Show on patreon.com. Also, the Noma Key Show. She's putting out videos. You can find that at the Noma Key Show, youtube.com/the Noma Key Show, and patreon.com, the Noma Key Show. Noma Key will be with us soon. We just got to, we're coordinating all of this. We're rolling out one feature at a time, but we're going to get back full on. Also, don't forget, check out the Antifada, patreon.com, the Antifada. I think Jamie said that she had a new episode that she was gearing up for last week. So check that out. Probably released by now. And also Literary Hangover, Matt.
There'll be stuff on the Twitch and YouTube streams pretty soon. I think this week is finally it's going to happen. So look out.
It's going to happen. He's got a huge new computer there that I'm going to emulate. I'm going to have this whole thing wired, man. It's going to be nuts around here. And if anybody knows why, for some reason, a Focusrite, what do you call those things? It converts an analog signal into digital. And now apparently a iVault. They work for some sound programs, but not for Skype. Like, what the frick? And it worked before. Check that out. Also, don't forget that AM Quickie, folks. Sign up for that. Thanks for your patience as we get all this correct. We will get better and better as time goes on. We're going to head into the fun half. 646-257-3920. I am now, as I speak, making it possible for... Jamie also has a plug. Donate to the New York City's DSA Mutual Aid Grocery Fund. We will put a link to that in all of our stuff. We'll put that in there too. And see you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes. Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1 half. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd. Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance. Ooh. Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up. Ooh. Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fun half, wherein we take your phone calls and we play some video, and we'll take some IMs at one point. I think I got the IM client up as well. I've got, and we're just, all we're doing is compiling our list of things to check and fix when it is time to check and fix things. We should, why is that not? I don't know if that's working for me. Let's see. It says I'm up on the IM, but I don't know if I am. I'm not getting that. People can try and IM me and let us know if you are getting any sense that we're up on the IM. We'll work on that. And we also got to figure out how to boost the sound on that call. So let's put that on the list of things to go over in our post-show debrief. All right, let's take a quick phone call. Get into it. You're calling from a 509 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, this is Ronald Reagan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Ronald Reagan. Or should I say the coward?
Very brave of you to try to get your small child to call me a coward on Friday's show.
Well, I mean, I don't know where you went, but you came in, you challenged my son to a debate, and then you don't show up for it.
Well, just so the listeners know, I floated the idea to you on Thursday. You ignored me all day, which is fine. You're busy. And then Friday, just before the show, you say, "Oh yeah, maybe something like that," and not very committal. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like I'm being accused online of not showing up. When, trust me, I'll show up anytime, any place to debate Saul Cedar or any other small child who wants to defend a terrible movie.
Hold on one second. Let me see if he's around. I have him on walkie-talkie.
Good.
Saul, you there? All right. I told him to turn it on at 2. What? You want to call back?
Wow. Interesting.
Well, he's at school. He's in school right now.
Sure.
All right.
Sure,
Why don't you call back?
Let me just say this. This is what I wanted to really tell him.
Tell it to his face. Why are you going through me?
Okay. Okay, fine. Well, you got my number. You call me. You call me, Sam.
I don't have the ability to call you because of the system. You call back at like 2:15, and we'll do this.
Yeah, I fucking will.
All right, good. Bye-bye. Did he swear? He's going to debate my 7-year-old kid with that mouth? Forget it. Well, folks, so Joe Biden went out there today and he gave I guess like an 18-minute, did a show and good for him. I mean, I think that a lot of people were waiting for him to do something. I'm glad. This is something I specifically called for on Friday, for him to come out and do these shadow briefings, and he's doing them now. I think they could do a better job, but I'm trying to be generous with my assessments. I know how hard it is to set up stuff in your house remotely. I imagine, or one would imagine, that they have more resources than we do to do this type of thing. And frankly, like, I'm a little bit concerned about some of the stories that are coming out about, in Politico and The Hill, where they're saying like, stuff of like, the headquarters and campaign trail now run through Biden's living room as his staff scrambles to increase his social media outreach to compensate for the social distancing. First of all, they were already planning to socially distance him. So one would think that they would have thought some of these things through. But the first step, installing a better video camera in Biden's house. Installing. I did this. What I'm doing right now, I did this for MSNBC with a camera that is, I don't know, $300. That's basically the top of the line webcam. Maybe it's not the top of the line, but I imagine they could go like, we're going to get us an $800 webcam. And this thing is pretty awesome. I don't even know what the name, I don't know where I got it, but this thing, look at this thing. I can do this. I can do this. Look at that. All right. I can zoom in. Like that. Whoa. And are they really like, this just plugs into the computer. This just goes into Skype. You could go directly to YouTube to this. I mean, we're doing a fairly sophisticated thing. I assume he's not rolling in different video elements, but even if he is, we're doing it. This should be able to be done by a major presidential campaign. And this is not like day one. I get it. They're scrambling, but it's not like they had a whole list of things that they were going to go do outside of, I think, maybe some fundraisers. It's a little bit disturbing, to say the least. But at least he's out there. I want to give him kudos for that. And it's important that there is at least one person who is on a daily basis going out there and providing some type of briefs to change the narrative. So I'm happy Biden's doing it. I hope they could ramp it up, and I hope they could be a little bit more nimble on this whole thing. There are other people I would prefer doing it, but if he's the presumptive front runner, then he's the presumptive front runner. And it's important because you have Donald Trump going out there and spewing lies on a daily basis. Lies after lies. Play this clip of Donald Trump on Friday, basically saying that hospital workers can sanitize and reuse masks. Why do they need so many new ones? Why the waste? Play this clip.
Here we go.
A lot have already come in. I have to tell you, the throwing away of the mask, being in private business, the throwing away of the mask right away, they're thrown away. And when you hear 55 million masks were ordered, I'm saying 55 million, how could it possibly be such a number? And they say, oh.
They're throwing away the masks. They throw them away. You know, when you're in business, you know that you don't throw away the mask. If you ever wanted a better argument for why anything that is important to people, like life or death or health related, should not be in the hands of private business, Donald Trump just gave you the best argument. You know, you could save a lot of money if you didn't, you know, have to wash the scalpels every time you use it. You know, wipe them off. But you don't have to, like, sterilize them and do stuff like that. And why wear the gowns? Why wear the gowns? Just, you know, you throw them away. That's expensive. Let's just have one gown, one set of gloves. Why so many gloves? You got a little blood on there? You wash them off. Little soap. Then you use the gloves again for the next patient. Here we go.
A lot have already come in. I have to tell you, the throwing away of the mask, being in private business, the throwing away of the mask right away, they're thrown away. And when you hear 55 million masks were ordered, I'm saying 55 million, how could it possibly be such a number? And they say, oh, that's just a small fraction of what we need. And I said, why aren't we sanitizing masks? You know, you look at the masks. I've looked at all the different masks. Some don't lend themselves to doing that, I think, but many do. And I said, why aren't we have very good liquids for doing this, sanitizing the masks. And that's something they're starting to do more and more. They're sanitizing the masks. And I don't know if anybody would like to speak to that.
Yeah, I like the look on Fauci's face, like, not me. No, I would not like to speak on that. I would not like to speak about what's involved with medical personnel or somebody presumably at the hospital whose job it is to handle all of these contaminated masks and presumably, you know, other things, and what's involved in them having to scrub and clean, like, you know, put what? It's nuts. It's insanity. And it's just simply a way for him to cover for how they have completely screwed this up. And there is a just mounting evidence as to just how big of a screw up this is. First of all, Trump is refusing to use the Defense Production Act, which he already signed, to ramp up production of things like ventilators, things like masks and whatnot. And this basically means that when the government orders something from your company, it comes before private production of other things. And I mean, I can imagine he doesn't want to do it because some of his business friends were like, nah, that's going to cost us money. And that's what's going on. He says, we're a country not based on nationalizing our business. Call a person over in Venezuela. And he's like, you know, but they're doing it already. We don't need to compel them to do it. Here's a story of, and we have right now, hospitals who are cash poor can't afford new medical devices, imports of medical supplies. And look, we were talking about this on the show over a month ago, I think, at this point, right? When we were saying like the CDC was starting to make lists about drugs that wouldn't be available. And I was just talking about, you know, my daughter saying that Depop, you know, there were shipments being delayed and some of those Indiegogo, like tech stuff. I mean, it was obvious that we were going to be facing this. And the idea that there was nobody in the, I mean, like, look, I can understand, sometime in January, maybe early February, you're not talking about the virus. You don't want people to panic, but you're already gearing up for these things. You're already making contingencies. You're already developing plans. I mean, I can understand why you might be hesitant to tell the public because you don't want them panicking in the event that this turns out to be nothing, but we want to make sure that this is, going to be okay. There were apparently, not only did the Trump administration eliminate an American public health position in Beijing intended to help detect disease outbreaks in China. It's according to Reuters. The American disease expert, a medical epidemiologist embedded in China's disease control agency, left her post in July. I want everybody to sort of imagine, just like fully grasp what went on here. 2 years ago, they eliminate the primary and chief individual and his sort of like cadre of lieutenants who coordinates the interagency stuff in the event of a pandemic and sits on the National Security Council, so can brief other members of the government and say, hey, we've got a real disaster coming down the pike. And then there's just like these series of other firings of individuals throughout the government. You could talk about bureaucracy is boring and scientists are eggheads and technocrats don't know what they're doing, but this stuff matters. And each little thing they did degraded the system more. Maybe one thing here, one thing there wouldn't have made a difference, but you never know which one of those things are going to be. So you eliminate the position. It's not even about a personnel thing. It's the existence of the position. A CDC person in China who is an epidemiologist, that's the person who sends back to CDC, there's a real problem here, a real problem here. That's how you get out ahead of these things. Then there were U.S. intelligence reports from January and February warning about a likely pandemic. This is George Bush looking at that presidential briefing thing in August of 2001 and saying, okay, I've seen it. Yeah, bin Laden poised to strike. You've covered your ass. The warnings from the U.S. intelligence agencies, here it is. U.S. intelligence agencies were issuing ominous classified warnings in January and February about the global danger posed by the coronavirus, while President Trump and lawmakers played down the threat and failed to take action that may have slowed the spread of the pathogen. The warnings from U.S. intelligence agencies increased in volume toward the end of January and early February, said officials familiar with reports. By then, a majority of the intelligence reporting included in daily briefing papers and digests from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. This is a Trump-appointed person. And the CIA was about COVID-19, said officials who've read the reports. You know that they heard the warnings, at least some of them, because that's when Richard Burr went out and sold his stocks for Jesus. Come on, man. This is my favorite graph of this. So inside the White House, Trump's advisors struggled to get him to take the virus seriously. Alex Azar, the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, couldn't get through to Trump to speak with him about the virus until January 18th. This is according to two senior administration officials. When he reached Trump by phone, the president interjected to ask about vaping and when flavored vaping products would be back on the market. I'm going to read this again. When Alex Azar finally got through to the president to talk to him about the coronavirus problem, the president interjected to ask about vaping and when flavored vaping products would be back on the market. We're going to see a lot of ads go up about this. Listen to this. On January 27th, this is now 10 days later, almost 9 days later, White House aides huddled with then acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney in his office. Oh, incidentally, they got rid of the Chief of Staff in the middle of this. I'm not saying he would have been any better or any worse, frankly, but he was trying to get senior officials to pay more attention to the virus, according to people briefed on the meeting. This is Mick Mulvaney. Joe Grogan, the head of the White House Domestic Policy Council, argued, you ready for this? That the administration needed to take the virus seriously or it could cost the president re-election. Not like, or it could kill hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans. Not, or it's going to immiserate millions upon millions of people. It's going to destroy our economy. It's going to keep kids out of schools for who knows how long. But it could also inhibit your chances of being reelected. So we really should look at this. Huh? What? I'm going with ignore it and it will go away strategy. That's the strategy. That's what worked with Tiffany. So that's the way I got her out of my life. Just ignored her and then she was just gone. Meanwhile, the White House, according to the Daily Beast, the one thing they are doing, they are coordinating across agencies to launch a communications plan accusing Beijing of orchestrating a cover-up and creating the global pandemic. So, you know, it's the blame game. We're just going to blame China, and that'll be okay. Maybe we could start a war with them. Here is Donald Trump. After saying that hospital workers can sanitize and reuse masks, because he's in business. He knows you don't want waste. Somebody has manhandled that coleslaw at a restaurant. If it still looks good, you serve it to the next customer. Oh, that brake mechanism has failed. How much is it to replace it? Ooh, let's wait and deal with the lawsuits. We've got too many in our production flow right now to hold back. Here is Donald Trump explaining why he's not using the Defense Production Act, which would allow him to say to a whole host of manufacturers, hey, job number one is going to be producing X, Y, or Z. We need ventilators. You're turning your machines on. They're not going to be making vacuum cleaners anymore. They're going to be making ventilators.
Your Defense Production Act power.
Sorry. You're fulfilling private. I mean, there's a reason why the Italians were so pissed about those 500,000 tests going to this country, because they're like, we need them. And some private company got basically bribed to sell them to the United States because Trump was so desperate to have any tests in this country. Here's Trump explaining how, the market, the invisible hand will take care of it.
And on your Defense Production Act power, one of the features of that is that the federal government would be able to control the output, whether it's masks or ventilators, get it to the most areas of need, and control the pricing to keep it at a market level so it's not price gouging. One of the things we're hearing from governors, they can't find supplies and prices have gone up. So you've talked about the act, sir, but you have not yet compelled any companies. Why not?
Because we have so many companies making so many products, every product that you mentioned, plus ventilators and everything else. We have car companies without having to use the act. If we don't have to use specifically, we have the act to use in case we need it. But we have so many things being made right now by so many, they've just stepped up. In fact, Mike Pence and I were discussing it before. We've never seen anything like it, where they are volunteering. We want to make masks, like Hanes. I brought that up as an example. General Motors, I bring that up as another. Ford,
market, sir, right?
they're going to go on the open market. We want them on the open market from the standpoint of pricing, because otherwise, it's going to be, we could be very unfairly
Direct them to the places in
Pause it for 1
need.
second. Wait a second. Wait, what did he mumble there? We want them on the open market from a standpoint of pricing, because otherwise it's going to be unfair. Unfair. What? It's going to be what? They got to be able to charge $90 a mask. Otherwise, it's going to be unfair. They're already taking a hit there. Some of these guys may go out with may go without their bonuses. We're not going to. It's not fair. It's not fair. Continue.
As an example, General Motors, I bring that up as another. Ford,
market, sir, right?
they're going to go on the open market. We want them on the open market from the standpoint of pricing, because otherwise, it's going to be, we could be very unfairly
Direct them to the places in greatest need.
We are directing states, and sometimes we'll be competing against states, which I don't want, and we'll drop out of the bidding. We want the states to go first. And you know what we're doing is we're helping states. That's what we want to do. Same thing with the testing.
Pause it. I'm sorry, folks. The bidding? There's a bidding war? The states are engaging in a bidding war to get products because we don't want to be unfair mumble to these companies. A bidding war. The relief that is coming for medical workers is like an eBay auction. You could do it. You could buy it now, but that's up here. Maybe you could get it somewhere down here. And just to be fair, we're not going to bid against the different states. So that you got that going for you.
What we're doing is we're helping states. That's what we want to do. Same thing with the testing. We're helping states. We're helping states get to where they want. And we've made tremendous progress in every aspect of it.
This happens for a governor who needs equipment today.
Well, it's happening fast right now, and the governors are out there trying to get, and if they are competing with us, we immediately drop out, please.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, our trajectory, if you look at Italy, our trajectory is leaving them in the dust in terms of new infections. And that is because there are disparate responses to this state by state. That is because there have been initial responses by the federal government, by Donald Trump, by right-wing media has basically said, don't worry about it. This is a hoax. And man, like they're going to prolong this with this stuff, and they're going to make it just so much more severe. The idea that here it is. Look, we are the red there. And we, about 6 or 7 days ago, we were basically on track with Italy. Maybe about 8 days ago, we were basically on track with Italy. And then all of a sudden, we just took a hard left turn. And on a graph like this, you don't want to do that. That means that you're going straight up. You're going way up. we're over a 33% increase. We are over where China was these many days out. And I got news for you. I think that is going to be, I think by the time that we get to another 5 or 10 days, and that curve, we're not flattening the curve. Let's put it this way. We're getting rid of curve. There is no curve that way. It is now actually like going backwards. I don't know geometry enough to concave or convex, but whatever the one that you don't want is, that's the one that we're getting.
We need to start the curve.
Exactly.
America first.
We've been going like go back down here, right in between here, between like day 7 and 10 is where basically we lost the thread. Maybe day 12 and 10, right there. Yeah, right in there is where it really went wrong. Day 10, our response we could have kept it. And we didn't recover. And you could see like the UK, right? The UK, right at that time, right there, they had a little bit of that, and then they turned it to the right. The response at the beginning dictates how this is going to go. And we blew it. We blew it.
We also have another motive for Trump not wanting tests.
Let's see this one.
Or I just meant like they want to keep these numbers artificially deflated.
Well, the point is that you can have you can deflate the numbers, but really the thing to look at, not to get too morbid here, but this is where we're at, is you look at the deaths. The deaths, it tends to take, my understanding is like 3 weeks essentially. Takes you average 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 days to exhibit symptoms. It takes another 7 days to get ill enough that you need to get into the hospital. And the average for days of people who do die to die is another 7 days. So we will not have a sense that we have, because we don't have enough testing to establish that the number of cases is telling us anything. But deaths, you can actually measure. Deaths from coronavirus are much easier to measure. And my understanding is that the way to assess whether we've got any type of, we're starting to see any impact from social distancing or, across the board, is to look 3 weeks out from when people started. So in the case of, let's say, New York City, we're 2 weeks away, and the next 2 weeks are going to be ugly. They're going to be ugly in terms of fatalities in New York City. Other states and cities, I'm sure some are going through a similar thing. The density of New York, I think, is really, why this thing is, we're going to be first hit in the biggest way. Obviously, some isolated communities, but what we're hoping to see is sometime around April 7th or 8th, we have a couple of days, and maybe 3 days in a row is when you really have a real sense of it. 3 days in a row where the deaths are not multiplying at the same rate that they were before. I think people are anticipating a doubling of deaths from like now through that period of time. And then you want 3 days in a row where the deaths do not double, to give you a sense that the curve is starting to bend a little bit, that the things that you have put in place are starting to help. But the problem is, and you can go to this, maybe you can find this, Brendan. I don't know if I passed it along. It is, the Civics, that polling firm, did a poll about how concerned, or basically how people are concerned about coronavirus. It is stunning. In terms of age, here, I think I can send this to you, Brendan. This is worth looking at because this is, it's fascinating. In terms of age, and maybe we can put that link on the blog too. In terms of age, here's I sent you this picture. This is Democrats and Republicans. This is stunning. Democrats, extremely concerned, 56%. Moderately concerned, 28%. A little concerned, 13%. Not concerned at all, 2%. Scroll down here. Republicans, extremely concerned, 17%. That's 17% versus 56%. Moderately concerned, 29%. A little concerned, 32%. Not concerned at all, 21%. 3 times as many people. We're going to see in purple states, we're not going to see a difference, a disparity, because everybody's going to get it. But in cities which are dominated by Republicans, this right here, this graph. Go back to this graph in 6 to 8 months, 3 months, and that is going to make with a big difference. Age cohorts, not that different. You'd expect, everything we heard, we thought that was going to be different. Not that different. 18 to 34-year-olds, extremely concerned. And then the highest level is 35 to 49 at 41%. So 35% to 41%. And the other two fall in that. It's 50, 64. Hold on for 1 second. Here, Brendan, click off that for a moment so I can just scroll through this on mine as well. I'll just move it over to the other window. All right, go ahead. So you can pop that back up. Education, extremely concerned, is all more or less the same. Postgraduate, a little bit more, but not significantly. Women tend to be more concerned than men. 33% of men, 43% of women are extremely concerned. But there it is, that disparity between Democrats and Republicans. It's nuts. Scroll all the way down, Brendan. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. It'll be there. Oh, wait. Oh, back up. Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry, right after, right between. Oh, that's weird. Mine is different. But it says Democrats, 57% extremely concerned. Republicans, 19% extremely concerned. It's just shocking. By race, African Americans, the most concerned, 56%. White people, 34%. That's all. What you're seeing there is that the Republican Party is an all-white party. That's what you're seeing there. And then look at these states. All these red states in the 30s. Then you get to California, 45%. Connecticut, 41%. Hawaii, 46%. Louisiana, because of New Orleans, got hit, 40%. Maine, 43%. Maryland, 42%. Massachusetts, 46%. New Jersey, 48%. New York, 52%. The problem is that for these other states, that their level of concern is not commensurate with what's going on. They just don't know about it. It's a real disaster in the making. Let's go to the phones. You're calling from a 707 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Forrest from Napa Valley.
What's your name?
Forrest.
Forrest?
Like Forrest Gump.
Okay, Forrest from Napa Valley. How you doing, Forrest? What's on your mind?
So I was just wanted to mention how the problem with the coronavirus isn't just that it overwhelms our healthcare system, but also all of the healthcare that doesn't happen because we're busy dealing with the coronavirus.
Right.
So I had a surgery scheduled for tomorrow, actually, that got canceled because they've stopped all non-critical surgeries.
Yeah.
And I could be not drowning in my own mucus right now if we didn't have the coronavirus and if we had if we were better prepared for it.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. They've basically emptied out those hospitals waiting for, this sort of tsunami that they're going to get. I mean, it's the only thing that they can do. But yes, I mean, the misery is going to be across the board with this. And people, see, well, elective surgery, is the wrong word for it. It's non-critical, immediate or non-emergency surgery, basically. They're putting off just about everything they can. Well, I appreciate the call. I hope, hang in there. I don't know what else to tell you. Stay safe.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I just accidentally hung up on myself. Now, what the? Oh, God. Let's see if that works.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Please use no speakerphone and give your one comment or question ready.
I need a minute for me to get in.
For Sam to call out your area code. Sam will be with you shortly.
I don't know why. Well, let's just play this last clip of the FEMA administrator, Peter Gaynor. And here is Martha Raddatz basically asking, you guys are the federal emergency response team. How's it going with all the gear that we need to, people have to understand this, that it's happening and there's no choice. If the medical folks contract this, it's going to shrink our capacity to deal with this even more. And it's going to be giving it to other patients who may not even have it. This is the problem, is that if you can't administer a test to see if they have coronavirus without giving them the coronavirus, God knows what it means for false negatives. When they came in and took the test, they didn't have it, but because they got exposed to a medical worker who had it, there's a whole set of issues here without the protective gear. Here is Peter Gaynor.
I just want one more time on this mask. You say you're shipping them out where they're needed first. You've still got some in the stockpile. I wonder why that stockpile hasn't been depleted. Have you seen the urgent pleas from healthcare workers?
Well, we have. I have talked to governors. I've talked to emergency managers. We've gotten updates through the task force. I am well aware of the high demand for these items.
But again, so why haven't those been shipped to those urgent care facilities? If you have those masks in the stockpile, as you say you have, and they're shipped, why weren't they shipped before? Which really goes back to my original question. How are we in such bad shape at this point in terms of supplies?
Yeah, so again, like I said in the beginning, my focus is today, right? Filling all the demands that have been in the queue, filling the demands that we get today, tomorrow, and through the next month to make sure that we connect the supply with the demand and meet that need.
I just...
Yeah, he's not answering the question. He's not answering the question because they're obviously holding back. They either don't have the reserves, or to the extent that they have any reserves, they're holding them back for for somebody. It's quite possible they don't even have the reserves. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But they're messing up, as it were, pretty badly. I don't know if I want to play Mike Rowe. Yeah. Oh, this is sort of fun. Guess who has egg on his face today? It's Ron Paul. Remember Ron Paul putting out those newsletters that were racist, and it wasn't him, it was his buddies. I wonder if he's going to disavow this one too. This is Ron Paul. His newsletter. He had a op-ed, I guess, part of his newsletter business. And he was basically telling folks it's the coronavirus hoax. Yeah, scroll down on this. Let's read a little bit. The coronavirus hoax. This is March 16th. This is a week ago. Governments love crises because when the people are fearful, they are more willing to give up freedoms for promises that the government will take care of them. Well, I think there's some truth to that. After 9/11, for example, Americans accepted near total destruction of their civil liberties in the Patriots Act, hollow promises of security. It's true. It's ironic to see the same Democrats who tried to impeach President Trump last month for abuse of power, demanding that the administration grab more power and authority in the name of fighting a virus that thus far has killed less than 100 Americans. Declaring a pandemic emergency on Friday, President Trump now claims the power to quarantine individuals suspected of being infected by the virus and has political rights to stop and seize any plane, train, or automobile to stymie the spread of the contagious disease. He can even call out the military to cordon off a U.S. city or state. This may have made sense if he had written this like in December. Too early to give those powers to the president. I don't think the ink was dry on this thing. I mean, I understand he wrote it online, so there's actually no ink. But metaphorically speaking, by the time that his son was announced that he had the coronavirus, I'm sure his son is not taking it seriously now, right? I would imagine Senator Rand Paul is just like kicking it back. I don't need to socially distance myself from my family. Hugs for everybody. Hey, how about go see your dad? I'm sure Ron is very, very lonely these days. Why don't you go see your dad? We don't have to worry about this.
He did go to the gym after he was tested. He went to the Senate gym after he got his test, before receiving the results.
Unbelievable. These people are unbelievable.
He's also a doctor, in case anyone forgot.
Libertarian overrules doctor, I think.
Right. Didn't he have like his own, didn't he hire his own firm to license him and credential him? That's all it takes, right? Unbelievable. These people are insane. It's insane. Look at this. They're apparently, again, we've been talking about how the disinformation. There was an IT guy, or a tech guy, I should say, who wrote a piece about viralness of this virus. Now, I mean, if you read any epidemiologists on this piece that's on Medium, apparently got like 2 or 3 million views, and they pulled it down because they realized, like, hey, all the experts are saying this is complete, total like bunk. But the guy understands how social memes spread and how maybe videos become viral. And so he applied this to actual viruses and was applying more or less like marketing terms, apparently, to what are actual medical epidemiology concepts. And all the epidemiologists, basically debunked the thing. But look and see who promoted this bunk, basically saying like, hey, this is nothing to be worried about. It's a little bit overblown. Here it is. Laura Ingram tweeting again. It's that important. Please read Evidence Over Hysteria, COVID-19, 6469 medium. Here's Britt Hume just 2 days ago. Really worth the time. You have it. Spend the reading this. Numbers, facts, data. Most complete I've read to date. My favorite are the threads completely debunking this. Britt Hume, this is definitely worth reading. Smart analysis. Aaron Ginn, who's that dude? Oh, that's the actual thing. You get all these Fox News people pushing this stuff. It's really stunning.
Instead of time for some game theory, it's time for some epidemiology.
Exactly. And in this instance, the problem is less like, oh, you're going to have people selling bumper stickers, you know, Trump is Putin's favorite politician. Instead, it's going to be people like dying. Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 478 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Sam, you know who this is. Jeff, Georgia.
Jeff in Georgia. How are you, Jeff? What's on your mind?
Same thing that's on everyone's mind, dude. Like, what the fuck else am I supposed to talk about?
Yeah, I know.
Like, I'm sorry, but it feels like the world's ending in some ways. No, in all seriousness, I live in the heart of Middle Georgia in a very conservative area, so I thought I would just give you a little bit of a taste of what things are like here, how people are taking all this. This is prime Trump country for a lot of that misinformation you're talking about, for sure. And I know that last week I was running around the people that I talked to, 7, 8 out of 10 of them, if I would talk about, man, everything feels weird, like, towns half closed, schools all closed, when's it going to get better, that kind of stuff. A lot of them would look at me and say, with the, business is booming for delivery drivers. Things will be back to normal in no time, right? And it'll be whatever. And I had literally one guy just tell me straight up, like, "Hey, now I got an excuse to get day drunk." And I really identified with that, actually. Great deal. But a few people are starting to see the light, I'd say, just to put it bluntly, to maybe take this thing a bit more seriously. Warner Robins Air Force Base is where I live, right next to 20,000 employees, just civilians, who go there to work every day, and things are going as normal there. For now, there's been one case of coronavirus confirmed there, and they say it's all handled. And the amount of faith I have in that is, about the amount of faith I still have that Jesus Christ died for my sins. Just say none at all, Sam. I don't know what else to do or say, and I don't know when my community is gonna wake up, or what that's gonna look like when they discover that their institutions, they really aren't gonna be there. They're not there. They aren't on top of this. There's no leadership. They don't know what they're doing, and we're not prepared for this. And we're literally looking at like Great Depression levels of misery and suffering in this country. And it's like their heads are in the clouds, man. It's amazing. Maybe things will get a bit better this week when I get out there and get around to people. But last week it sure hadn't been that way, man. Everything's peachy king here, business as usual. Everything's half closed, sure, but we all still got jobs, and I know the rent's right around the corner, but we'll find a way through. Things will get back to normal soon. That's just not going to happen, and I have no idea what normal will even look like on the other side of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's surreal how quickly I think at one point it's going to turn for people, but the whole thing is surreal. Appreciate the call, Jeff. Stay safe.
I gotta say one more thing, Sam, and I'll be real quick. As people are about to have trouble paying their bills, frankly, there's going to be a lot of forces out there, including in your own heads, people, to make you feel bad about that, to make
Right.
you feel like that's your fault, to make you feel like you should have prepared, you should have saved, you should have done better in life. I wish I could pay all your bills for you people, and I can't. But what I can tell you is this: that notion's bullshit. It is. Don't let that get you down. There's a lot of people going to be in the same spot as you. You are still worth every bit as much as a person as you were before all this happened. Thank you, Sam.
I appreciate the
hang in
call,
there now.
Jeff. Thanks. I mean, I hope, certainly, we did a lot of interviews with folks who did ethnologies, going across the country, talking to people who had lost their homes in the foreclosure crisis following 2008, 2009, 2010. People were still losing their homes, 2011, 2012. I mean, people were losing their homes for years after that. And we did about, I probably imagine over the course of those years, a half dozen of different folks going around talking to people who were, I remember one where it was like people who were living sort of nomadic lives after losing their homes, and just different ethnologies, and talking to people and hearing their stories. And one of the consistent things that people expressed was some sense of guilt and isolation because they lost their home, because they lost their job, because they felt they hadn't saved properly. They looked back on their life and said, I should have taken a left here when I took a right there, vice versa, whatever it is. And they had no idea the sort of systemic nature of it, and that they were not alone, and that they were not the only, that they were in their situation, not because of decisions that they had made, but because of decisions that were made by others to, one, gamble with all this stuff, and two, to allow that type of gambling. My hope is that people don't have that same response in this situation, and I'm imagining they won't, because I think this is going to be so widespread, and because there's this sense of like, and it is this is an exogenous a factor, right? This is something that is outside of our control. What was within our control, and by our, I mean the collective expression of the our, which is government, the federal government. It was within the federal government's control to mitigate this. Do not let this turn into the absolute catastrophe and disaster that it will, and that it has. 2 million people have lost their jobs. Almost 1.5 million are people expected so far. And at the very least, having acted quicker, you could have seen like a shortened period of time where things shut down. You could have seen less concern about what's going on in the hospitals. I mean, on and on. Calling from a 514 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey Sam, this is me.
Yeah, who's this?
So this is Rala. I'm calling from Toronto, Ontario. I heard you guys were talking about this whole situation, like in the Middle East, the Iraq War and stuff on Friday. I just wanted to call in and just give some info. Like I'm Kurdish. I'm from Kurdistan region of Iraq. I've been living here for 2 years. Back home, I used to work with anti-terrorism organization. It was a low-key secret organization. We used to work, basically what we were doing was anti-ISIS propaganda, basically. And it was all pretty much sort of like funded by the UK government. And we were doing a lot of other jobs on the side as well with other like organizations and stuff. But it was mainly that, and yeah, like the reason I'm calling is because um, I personally have personal opinions on that, but also first off, like I wasn't that informed back in like a couple years back in terms of politics and morals and stuff. But after this whole time, like I learned a lot, but my ideas and stuff changed. So, but I just wanted to get your opinion on that. Like, what do you think of this whole thing? Like, what do you think? Is it okay for like like a U.S. or UK government to go in there and try to do this kind of stuff? Because it wasn't just like anti-terrorism propaganda. Because it was actually way more than that. We're doing a lot of work regarding the community. There were a lot of good things that we're doing to sort of like improve the community and give spotlight to people as well. But besides that, there were a bunch of other secret pages that we had. And these were they were very, well, like we were getting really into like, uh, I don't know like exactly how to describe it, but I also don't want to give too much details.
Right.
But it was not like some of them were not very. I didn't personally agree with because it was basically pushing people. It was basically like trying to give morals to these kind of people. That it was putting more like pressure and stuff on people to sort of like changing people's mind and stuff like that. It was like kind of like anti. I'm personally not religious, but it was kind of like against the religion.
I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, let me.
Yeah, it was supposed. Yeah.
Well, Roland, I mean, I think. Look, I think that fighting terrorism with propaganda is, in and of itself, not a bad thing. If you do it effectively, I don't know to what extent. Like without knowing the specifics. Broadly speaking, I think uh, I'm against intervening in really any countries that's not ours to a large extent. I mean, I think that there are circumstances where I think it's warranted, very very narrow circumstances militarily, and I'm not even sure what I think of the structure of doing that anymore is, frankly, after watching what happened in Libya. At that time, I felt like the best vehicle to determine whether it was warranted was the UN Security Council. I am obviously a lot more skeptical of that now because of Libya. But in terms of like propaganda and this and that, I mean, I think that if it is, out in the open, I don't know if you need to put like a paid for by blankety blank. But I think, I don't have too much of a problem with it. If it's clear what it is. I don't know the nature of the work that you were doing, but I think if it's out in the open, then people have the ability to sort of assess, who's saying this stuff. I think I don't really have much of a problem with it, but I'm not 100% sure of the stuff that was going on there. But I appreciate the phone call. Calling from a 516 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam, is this me?
Yes, it is.
This is Brian from Queens.
Brian, what's on your mind?
I actually wanted to ask you a question about Andrew Cuomo. There have been a few articles recently about Andrew Cuomo being like a possible contender for even the 2020 presidential race, which I don't quite understand. But I was more interested in, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a young New Yorker. My parents really like Andrew Cuomo. And until I listened to your program, I had actually never heard anyone say anything negative about Andrew Cuomo. And as a leftist, I was wondering if you could give me a rundown on why people don't like Andrew Cuomo and whether or not he would be actually a good contender for president either now or in the future.
Why people don't like Andrew Cuomo?
Yeah, why don't people like him?
I think a lot of people, particularly prior to Governor Nixon getting Cuomo to change a lot of his policies, but prior to that, he basically midwifed the IDC, which was a caucus of nominally Democrats who caucused with the Republicans to prevent any progressive legislation from getting passed. So the Democrats won the majority of seats, but about a half a dozen of these people, under the encouragement of Andrew Cuomo, created another caucus that caucused mostly with Republicans to prevent progressive legislation. That's like one of the biggest sort of like structural above board things. He offered all sorts of tax cuts for corporations and taxes, caps on property taxes that really devastated lower income communities. I can tell you that I sat in meetings when there was a contemplation of running against him running a candidate against him in 8 years, I don't know, 2010 maybe it was. And I sat in a meeting with about maybe 30 leaders of non-governmental organizations that help low-income people, that help labor, et cetera, et cetera. They all said that they basically preface it with like, I never do this because I really only care about serving the people that that I provide services for. And no one could be worse than Cuomo. Like the Republican wouldn't be worse than Cuomo. They were really adamant that Cuomo was horrible in that way. He's also, screwed up the MTA big time. Just the subways. The subways were starting to improve, and he is just so power hungry and narcissistic that he got rid of like the guy who had turned around the subways. I mean, I'm just thinking about like, off the top of my head, he's been basically standing in the way of marijuana legalization in this state. He opened up the doors to charters in a big way after sitting down with Ken Langone, the billionaire from Home Depot. I mean, all these things. And but I share your suspicion and concern that there may be some type of a move to get him in. But I appreciate the call.
We should get Perina on to talk about Cuomo sometime.
Yes, we'll do that. All right, yeah. Play that. Show that thing. I just want to put something up on the screen. What time is it right now, guys? Put this up on the screen. This thing from Ronald Reagan. I know there's a 25 limit. We put a 25 limit on the phone so that not too many people can hang on. Okay, what time is it right now?
2:17.
2:17, and I took this screen grab over a minute ago. What time was it 9 minutes ago? If it's 2:17 right now,
Just too much math. I don't know.
2:06. 2:06. So here's Ronald Reagan talking about it being 2:15 and the lines are full. The guy's lying. He's preemptively lying so he doesn't have to face Saul Cedar in a debate. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow. That's bad, man. That is low. Calling the 773 area code. Wow. I'm blown away by that. 773.
Hey, Sam, this is Jonathan Armstead. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jonathan, how are you? What's on your mind?
I'm good. Real quick, you mentioned a book a couple of years ago. It was No Man's Land by Jessica Bruder. She was the person who wrote about people living in RVs after losing their homes. But I had a question about NAFTA and the pandemics. I was really, really young when NAFTA happened. But, we're seeing all these manufacturing jobs going or we saw all the manufacturing jobs going, and now we don't have factories here to build things like ventilators and masks. And I know just a little bit about World War II, like in Flint, Michigan. the GM turned and Ford turned their assembly lines from assembling spark plugs to like munitions. But now, like after NAFTA, like we lost all of those jobs in those factories to go to cheaper places. Did anyone ever make any arguments or any concerns that by like gutting out all these manufacturing jobs, that if we had a pandemic or if we had another war, like it would be very, very difficult for us to get stuff because we wouldn't have the factories domestically to make things happen? Does that make any sense?
Yes. Well, I mean, Matt Stoller has been talking about this actually for a couple of years. And if you go back and look at Matt Stoller's tweets back in December, in January, he said exactly this. Exactly this. David Dayen wrote a piece in the American Prospect about this. I interviewed him about this very topic maybe a month ago on Ring of Fire, where we talked about his dad was in textiles, and apparently they went up to Washington to attempt to basically say to Congress people, you don't want to outsource all this stuff but Matt Stoller has been on this beat for, I think, at least a year or so, maybe more, talking about how it is a national security issue that we have outsourced all this stuff essentially to China. In part, maybe because China is a rival. But I mean, at this point, like everybody's a rival, right? When it comes to like, on some level. I mean, Donald Trump is really, we had an opportunity to get testing from the World Health Organization, but, and this is not to say that, I think this is a problem. This is one of the reasons why we need manufacturing, locally, just supply lines, right? Like you just need, from a supply line standpoint, there should be, and apparently, like this is hopefully there will be a lesson learned here that we need to basically say, I don't know if that means like, okay, we're going to subsidize X number of manufacturing, entities in these parts of the country. And when we subsidize it, we're going to subsidize it in this way. And in response, we're going to have, it's going to be more or less controlled by us in terms of like, we're going to set, executive pay. We're going to set a floor for worker pay, that type of thing. And we're going to develop, there has to be some of these sort of like industries that are, so that we can maintain some security in terms of this stuff. I agree with you, but go back, look at Matt Stoller's Twitter feed. And
actually, I'll just leave with this. I pulled up an article he did for Wired in February of 2020. COVID-19 is going to mark the end of affluent politics.
Oh yeah, I talked about that on the show. I did. We went through that. I think that piece on this show. Certainly right around that week. Thanks for the call. Let's see if we can find that. I think we cut a video on that affluence thing, and that must have been like February 20th. So that was probably a month ago. Just getting word that the second attempt at a procedural vote on COVID-19 stimulus failed again in the Senate. That's per Axios. Let me just see if I can get hold of Saul Cedar. He's got these walkie-talkies for his birthday, and thought they might come in hand. Saul, come in. Nothing. I'm not going to bring Ronald Reagan on without. Oh, maybe Saul. He tweeted at me saying that all the lines were filled up in 20 minutes from now.
Saul better, I was gonna say Saul better be careful. He's gonna wind up on Progressive Voice.
Call him from a 401 area code. Did I get him in or her in? 401.
Hello.
Hello. Oh boy.
Hello, Sam?
Yes. Who's this?
Oh, hey, I'm Ben. Oh my God, I can't believe I actually got in. This is insane.
Well, there's a lot of insanity going on these days, Ben. I think
Yeah.
probably you getting onto the line is not necessarily competition for that, but go ahead. What's on your mind?
Yeah, that's fair. Hey, so I've been watching your videos a lot about you arguing with libertarians. I'm not a libertarian. Let's just get that straight. I don't want to fan the flames, but every time I see you arguing with them, I'm just curious as why you never bring up Chile and bring up, like Pinochet, and like I hear you talk about Milton Friedman a lot, and you never talk about how the Chilean government implemented his neoliberal ideas to the extreme and how neoliberalism was started in Chile. Just bringing in private markets and private everything and seeing how that's happened since, the dictatorship. I'm just curious why you don't bring up that point.
I mean, I've talked about that in the context, in a different context, but why I don't bring it up with libertarians is because the for the most part, like, I don't know. I just think that citing the failure of this philosophy in one place does not necessarily prove that it doesn't work everywhere, but their arguments are so. I just think that it's just in terms of exposing the absolute lunacy of their of what they're proposing. I would rather sort of guide them to doing it themselves. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I mean, it really is just more of like a tactical.
I know
thing.
your A plus B equals C. I know you like to let them come to the conclusion. But like, I feel like with Chile, you could just point out that they have private water and they have private roads and they have, ridiculous gas prices and how much, the working class and the poor, like, when Pinochet took over, there was like 20% unemployment after they killed like 5,000 people. So I think you could use that as like, the argument for, monopoly of monopoly of force is what you call it.
Yeah.
And like, you could bring up that and how then, oh, look at the free market though. And like all the GDP went up. I think you could use Chile as a good example. Also, I'm Chilean, and my
I mean, I've talked about what's happened down there many times. I mean, that it happened on that was the first 9/11, right? When Allende was taken out in a coup, and Kissinger's involvement, and then yes, they brought down Milton Friedman, and this is where this was their sort of like free market fantasy. And yeah, it was a horrible failure, but they'll go on and they'll say, well, that's a function of Pinochet and trying to have a monopoly of force, and that's not a function of what Milton Friedman instituted. And then to be frank, they could say that, and there's nothing that I'm going to say that is going to sort of like convince them that their worldview is wrong at that point. It's just, I find it to be more effective to just sort of like keep it as to like, what their plans are. Like, how does this actually work out? But I appreciate the call. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sam. Appreciate it. I've been watching your arguments with my parents, and they love hearing you do all these arguments. So thank you very much for countless years of entertainment.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for the call. Calling from this is just a general Skype number. Are you calling from Skype? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You got to back off your mic just a little bit, though.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to try to take the sound down. Sorry.
That's good. That's good.
Just the way your connection's changed has made it hard to balance. Sorry, mate.
Well, all right. Excuse me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. It's Matt calling from London. And first of all, I just want to announce that thanks to the shutdown, the era of the pajama boy is back, baby.
That's right. It is now the era of the pajama boy again.
That's true. Now, Sam, listen, I know that we're dealing with microplastics, global warming, air pollution, deforestation, the global pandemic, Biden being the fucking nominee, and centrist Dems. But putting all of that aside, I have a thought experiment for you.
All right. Thank you.
Right. Good. So, Sam, do you like going to the butcher, Sam?
Do I like going to the butcher? I mean, sure.
Do you like supporting family-run small businesses?
Yes.
Have you ever been to Texas?
Yes.
Now, Sam, in my thought experiment, what if all butchers were in Texas and they're run by a family, and there's this guy who wears like a mask. It's made from human skins, and all the meat in the butcher shop is human flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if all butchers were like that, Sam. Would it still be okay for you to support family butchers?
I certainly
Yes,
wouldn't.
Mel, because I know how you dealt with Raycon the last time.
Well, would it still be okay for me to support family butchers? And I couldn't go to any family butchers if that one was bad. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, then no, it would not be right for me to support family butchers.
I just want to remind you, you can't use the mindset of then. You have to use the mindset of now.
So now I can't support family butchers because of this scenario that you're talking about in the future.
Yeah, I want to be clear. It's a very relevant and thought-provoking thought experiment here, Sam. And this is why I hung on to talk about the real issues that the left just isn't dealing with.
Well, I appreciate the call, and I think you have proven your first point, which is that the era of the pajama boy is back. Thank you. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Oh boy. Let me see. Let's see if we get Saul back in here. I mean, Saul may be a little pissed. He's definitely pissed. I mean, I don't know if you guys could hear the yelling that was going on here. First day for school. Maybe you'll hear the buzzing. Saul, you there? Calling from an 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam.
Josh?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hey. I heard someone calling about Cuomo
Yep.
just now. Did you know that he is refusing federal aid because he wants to cut Medicaid? This is the word on the street during the pandemic. And I am seeing the push to make him the nominee in 2024, and I think he's trying to do a good job of making himself look like a leader in this time of crisis. But people should be aware of the fact that he is refusing federal aid right now to cut Medicaid, and he's also not suspended any rent payments. He's suspended mortgage payments, but no rent payments. So, I mean, I know we all know he's awful, but I do feel like we will hear a lot of people in the liberal media trying to shove him down our throats, either now or in 2024. And we should just remind people that he's handling this crisis pretty badly, including acting really late when it comes to sending non-essential people home. But I don't know if you had heard about his refusal to accept Medicaid.
I hadn't heard that at all. I mean, to be honest with you, it's just between trying to get all this stuff together, and there's a lot more news than one would have anticipated, obviously, of this ilk. I did not read that, but I will look into that. If you have any links, send me at Majority Reporters, will you?
Yeah, I will. I mean, it's pretty inexcusable, especially in this time of
It mirrors exactly what the Trump administration is trying to do too.
Yeah.
With food stamps. Appreciate the call. Hang in there. Stay safe. Let's see. Calling from a 267 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Take one or two more calls.
Hey, Sam.
Yep.
Is this me?
It is you.
Oh, hey, Sam. I sent you a tweet sometime today of a disease expert named Michael Osterholm, who was on Joe Rogan's podcast a few weeks back, but he was on Tucker Carlson. And before he came on, Selma Verma was being interviewed by Tucker Carlson and lying about ventilators.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as he switched over to talking to the infectious disease expert, that guy just like blew everything she said out of the water. So it's an interesting watch. You should check it out. But
that was last night.
No, it was last week. But the information is still relevant because of the the ventilator situation is going to be around until it becomes bad. But a lot of people are projecting that to be like at the end of the month or at the beginning of April when we start to run low on the available ventilators.
Right.
So yeah, she wouldn't answer the question of whether if we'll have enough ventilators, and then the disease expert Michael Osterholm basically explained how dire the situation is, and Tucker Carlson's reaction to that was just stunned. He couldn't believe that the guy was so frank about it. But yeah, definitely check that out. I don't know if you guys will use it on the show. It's a little old, but it is kind of stunning how these people in the task force will go on to Fox News or any of it
and just lie,
not answer questions as you had shown earlier.
Well, maybe we'll have that
when the experts come on.
Maybe we'll have that
the lunatics.
Maybe we'll have that guy on, the epidemiologist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hopefully people are getting the message now, but I don't know. It's crazy. I appreciate the phone call.
No problem.
We'll take two more calls. Brendan, you want to pick a number? I guess Saul maybe we'll have to do this another day. Get the walkie-talkie. And Brendan says number 17. We'll go to 17. Calling from a 954 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Good. Who's this?
My name is Kevin. I'm from Fort Lauderdale.
Kevin from Fort Lauderdale. Are people still going to the beach down there, Kevin?
Yes, man. And that's kind of like the point I was talking about is, so here in Fort Lauderdale, I don't know if you've ever been here, there's yachts everywhere. It is the 1% here. It is the 0.1% here. I work at a restaurant, a high-end restaurant here, and a majority of my customers are these people. They're the yacht brokers, the yacht owners, the real estate people. And yeah, it's just, they all think it's silly. But I was really calling with a question because I don't really hear anybody talking about this or thinking about this, but I wanted to get your input on it. And by the way, I want to get the obligatory compliments out of the way. I love you guys. I've been listening daily for like a year now.
Oh, thank you. How'd you find the show?
But, right, I'm subbed at Kyle Kalinske, Young Turks. We're all the same world, the right side of history. So my question is about Biden and his disappearance and what you think about this. So I kind of remember in like 2016, there was some articles saying like he didn't want to run for president. Now I get his son died the year before, but I'm wondering, like, obviously if you're a smart person right now, you're going to be able to tell that we're going to go into nationalization of things, socializing of things. We are going to have to do this. This $1,200 one-time payment is not going to help anybody. There are plenty of people over $75,000 a year that are living paycheck to paycheck. Doesn't matter that they make over $75,000 a year. We are going to crumble. So what I'm wondering is, do you think Joe Biden is not a liberal? He is, let's face it, Republican light. He always has been. So do you think, because he's a smart guy, do you think he's thinking like, I didn't sign up for this shit. I wanted to be the president of the normal world where I can, profiteer and be Joe Biden. Like if you're smart, you can tell like this is going to be the world of Bernie Sanders that we're going into. This is going to be the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you're saying.
Is that why he's hiding?
Well, no. I mean, look, I think you need
Does he want to be that president?
I think you got to just honestly, like, I mean, I think you and I share, a similar perspective to this, but I do think that when you're talking about the analysis that he's making and that others, you need to step back a little bit to step back just a little bit. I think what is more likely, put aside the questions of socialism and the questions of, like, of
nationalizing healthcare,
nationalizing and him wanting to go in and profiteer. Like, I think he was running initially because he felt like he could restore dignity to the office and, some measure of competence to the office. I just think that, like, in his mind, competence, he defines it slightly differently. I also think that, like, the idea that everybody thinks that we're going to have to respond that way, you just finished telling me that those people down there, they don't even take it seriously at all.
No, not at all.
And so, but I do think,
beaches, but yeah.
And I do, and I imagine, like, I imagine there is, a sense of, like, oh boy, this is, I'm running for a job that is going to be fundamentally different than it was 2 months ago.
Correct. And that's what I mean. Like,
But-
his disappearance is rather telling, man.
Well-
I mean, either way
well-
you look at it, he's either scared shit and his campaign is scared shit, or he's realizing this is going to be a completely different world that I didn't sign up for.
Well, but
you know what I mean?
Well, let me just tell you this. If you run for the presidency, the idea that you would be like, oh, this is going to be, this is a time of, I mean, my suspicion is that the personality of someone who is going to run for the presidency of the United States looks at this as not something that you want, but like they think they're up to this. Now, Joe Biden was already saying prior to this that he anticipates more or less a caretaker presidency, right? Like, I'm going to be like some type of transition. And I think what is more likely is that this is not a very nimble campaign. He is not a very nimble guy. And
he looked pretty rough on that video he released yesterday.
I think that they were just sitting back and trying to figure out, like, how do we deal with this? And, and I think they were doing that. And on one level, I can understand it because, last week on Monday, we were in Brooklyn. On Tuesday, I was up here and we had we just launched right into it. I can understand taking a couple of days, but this stuff is not rocket science. And, I mean, to me, it is less about what you say. I think he's definitely, has had the thought like, oh my gosh, I'm running for a different job than I thought it was 2 weeks ago. And I would have liked our presumptive nominee to be more nimble and be aware of what's going on. And then, of course,
it's scary, frightening that he's not. I mean, Bernie's all over this, man. You got to give it to Bernie. He's been doing as much as he possibly can to be presidential.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, look, and I think, Biden has come out and is starting to adopt, some versions of Warren's plans, which I don't think are going to be sufficient, frankly. But at the very least, what that indicates to me is, like, they don't even have an apparatus to come up with any type of solutions. And so, like, this is, and look, it's always been the case that Bernie's existence makes Warren's plans seem less sort of radical. I mean, they are on some level, and I'm not even sure that Bernie's plans are radical, but I'm just saying in terms of, like, it having Bernie define the left over here makes it much easier for Biden to accept Warren's plans. If Warren's plans were the outermost left solution, to these situations, he would be going with Gillibrand's plans or Klobuchar's plans. I don't know if Klobuchar has any plans.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the way this works, right? And so, in that respect, like, at least what it shows me is that the guy is a bit of a sieve. And if these,
Do you think it's just his confidence that he thinks he's got it wrapped up in the bag? There's no way that all the states are going to start being aware of how presidential Bernie is in this scenario.
No, I just think that, like, I think it's just like
he has.
There's just no there. I mean, I think. Listen, I think there is no there. Is it possible that Sanders could win at this point? I suppose. But I think the odds are extremely, extremely difficult, particularly in this context, right? I mean, it's just like people don't want to litigate the primary now. They just don't.
I mean, it's going to help Bernie. That thing you reported on earlier. I saw you were talking about how CNN is already talking about Biden being missing. Or no, I'm sorry. That was The Hill. I watched a clip of The Hill this morning.
Well, yes, but he came out today. He came out today.
Yeah.
So that's over.
Yeah.
It's
so,
just
I
now.
mean, that is going to put some attention on Bernie being out there and Biden not,
I agree. But I mean, what you're talking about is, it's just not realistic.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just not realistic. And so, frankly, I think it's more realistic to say that, like, Biden just is not up to it and has decided that he's not up to it. I mean, I think that's what Andrew Cuomo is thinking
Bernie,
about.
anywho, and I love you guys. Keep doing it. Awesome. I also wanted to comment earlier. You were saying you when you're talking about the stimulus, Republicans just might be completely, these people in Congress just might not be aware of what's going on. I can tell you that's 100%, man. They live in a different look. I deal with these people that own Bentleys and Ferraris and Rolls Royces and brand new S-Class Mercedes. They live in a different existence that you and I do.
Yeah.
Completely 100%. And you have no idea the lack of self-awareness that these people have. And I work in a tipping game. Most people would assume I make 6 figures a year because of the people I take care of. We're all in poverty. The bartenders who have been working there for 15 years, they don't get $1,000 tips hit at the bar from a billionaire yacht owner that's chilling with his Brazilian wife he just married. They tip just like you and me, man. I've been there for 15 years. It's the same faces. It's not like there's new faces coming in and out of the restaurant. It's the same people they've been taking care of for years and years and years, and they all tip like you and me. It's rare to come across somebody that throws a big 1%er tip, if you know what I'm saying.
I hear you.
So yeah, I don't want to keep you on anymore, man. Thank you for
Appreciate
your
the
time.
call.
I just want to back up Ronald Reagan. He was correct. It took me about 100 tries to connect to the call.
Well, I'm sorry. Ronald Reagan. All right, goodbye. Ronald Reagan made a just like fabricated a statement, like, call in at 2:15, and he's tweeting this out at 2:10. He's tweeting this out at 2:05. It's grotesque. And I'll also say that I am a minimum of 22% tipping. Like, to bring me down, if the service is really bad, I will go to 18%. If somebody's like really, like, I get into like literally a fight with the waiter, I will go to 18%. But having spent enough time as a day manager at a Chinese restaurant, and also, well, I appointed myself the day manager. I was the only person working. I was the waiter and the cashier so I small restaurant in I think technically in Somerville, maybe right across the border. I appointed myself the day manager. I was the only person who spoke English during the day, so very easy to do. But I was also wait staff. So, all right, the final call of the day, calling from an 818 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. Long time no see. Dave from Jamaica.
Dave from Jamaica. How are you? Yes, it's been a very long time.
It's just a good sign that you're blowing up well. So I noticed you're getting better and better at doing your show from the bunker. So You might not go back to New York then once you master this, so you don't have to travel.
I don't know. There's a lot of it's bunker life is not exactly all it's cracked up to be. But where are you? Are you in California?
No. I'm calling from Jamaica. It's the phone program I use, and we are also on lockdown here too. So I've been outside the house for a week.
Wow.
But to make things a little light, I have a question that's been bugging me. I've been watching everybody do their content from their undisclosed locations, seeing their top half. Do you guys wear pants?
No.
I thought so.
In fact, that's one of the I tend to be a live and let live kind of EP boss of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I'm like, no pants.
No pants. I thought so. I knew it, Sam.
Yeah.
Well, good to talk to you. So,
Dave,
see you later, Sam.
Thanks for the call. Glad you're safe. Stay safe. All right, let me just try one more time. See if I can get Saul Cedar. He was supposed to turn his walkie-talkie on at 2:30. All right, folks. Stay safe. Stay inside. Be well. We will see you tomorrow. Oh. We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't